I'm 67 years old, and I've spent 44 of those years homeless. That's right, 44 years, from age 23 to just 8 months ago. And I'm about to tell you something that nobody, not your motivational speakers, not your success gurus, not your well-meaning friends will ever tell you. Because it sounds too cruel, too unfair, too much like victim blaming. But it's the truth. And I wish to God someone had grabbed me by the shoulders and screamed it in my face when I was young enough to do something about it. The truth is this. The moment you think you're the exception to the rules of life, the moment you believe the universe owes you a comeback, the moment you tell yourself, I'll fix this tomorrow, you've already lost. And you won't realize you've lost until decades have passed and tomorrow never came. Let me tell you when I learned this, not at 50, not at 60, but at 23 years old, March 17th, 1981. I remember because it was St. Patrick's Day, and I'd just been fired from my job at Henderson's Auto Shop. Third job I'd lost in 6 months. My girlfriend, Monica, had left me 2 weeks before. Took our 8-month-old daughter, Sarah, with her. Said she couldn't watch me destroy myself anymore. I was sitting in my apartment, my last month's rent paid, looking at an eviction notice that would come into effect in 28 days. And I had a choice. I had $340 in my pocket. I could use it to keep the lights on, buy food, humble myself, and ask my brother Thomas for help finding work. Or I could do what I'd been doing for months. Tell myself I was too talented for regular work, too smart to play by society's rules, too special to fail permanently. I chose pride. I chose the bottle. I chose to believe that somehow, some way, things would work themselves out because they always had before. Except they hadn't always worked out. I'd just been lucky. And luck, I learned, eventually runs out. That was 44 years ago. And I'm only telling you this now because I finally have a roof over my head again. A small room at St. Vincent's Transitional Housing. And from here, looking back across 4 decades of sleeping on cardboard, of eating from dumpsters, of watching my own daughter grow up through Facebook posts on library computers, I can see exactly where I went wrong. And it wasn't that first night I slept in my car. It was every single morning after that when I woke up and told myself the same lie. This is temporary. I'll fix this. Just not today. You want to know what 44 years on the streets teaches you? It teaches you that rock bottom has a basement, and that basement has a sub-basement. And you can keep falling for decades thinking that surely you must hit the ground soon. You don't. You just get used to falling. The first year was the worst because I still had hope. I still believed I was different. I'd park my car, a 1976 Dodge Dart that barely ran, behind the old textile mill on Sycamore Street. I'd wake up at 6 a.m., use the gas station bathroom to clean up, and I'd tell myself, today's the day I turn it around. I'd look for work, real work. But here's what nobody tells you about being homeless. You smell. Even when you wash in gas station sinks, you smell like someone who sleeps in a car. And people can tell. Employers can tell. They look at your wrinkled clothes, your tired eyes, the way you're just a little too desperate, and they know. But I didn't blame them. I blame the world. I blame my ex-boss. I blame Monica. I blame my father for never teaching me to be a man. I blamed everyone except the one person who could actually change my situation. Me. My car died in August of 1982. Transmission gave out. I'd been living in it for 16 months, and I remember sitting there on the side of Route 34 watching the tow truck take it away and thinking, okay, now get serious. Now I have to change. But you know what I did? I found a new spot under the Morrison Street Bridge. I found a sleeping bag at Goodwill, and I told myself, this is temporary, just until I get back on my feet. I'm 67 years old, and I'm about to tell you the hardest truth I've ever learned. There is no back on your feet moment. There's only the daily choice to do the next right thing or to postpone it again. And if you postpone it enough times, postponement becomes your life. By 1985, I'd lost my daughter completely. Monica had remarried. A good man, from what I heard. Accountant. Provided for Sarah in ways I never could. I'd see my daughter sometimes, from a distance. Monica would bring her to the park on Saturdays. I'd watch from across the street. This little girl who had my eyes, playing on the swings, completely unaware that her real father was watching from the shadows like some kind of ghost. I could have walked over. I could have introduced myself. Could have begged Monica for a chance to be in Sarah's life, even in some small way. But I didn't. You know why? Because I was embarrassed. Because I smelled like the streets. Because I didn't have anything to offer. Because I told myself, I'll reach out when I'm doing better, when I have something to show for myself, when I'm someone she can be proud of. That was 39 years ago. Sarah is 43 now. She has 3 kids I've never met, and 2 months ago, through the social worker at St. Vincent's, I finally reached out. I wrote her a letter, explained everything, apologized for everything, asked if maybe, possibly, we could meet for coffee. She said no, politely but firmly, said she'd made peace with not having a father, said she hoped I was getting the help I needed, but she'd built a good life and didn't want to disrupt it with painful history. I don't blame her. How could I? I had 43 years to be her father. I chose the streets instead. Not because I wanted to, but because every single day I chose comfort over courage. I chose the familiar hell over the uncertain work of climbing out. I chose to tell myself tomorrow until tomorrow became 4 decades. You're sitting there thinking, but you were homeless. You were struggling. You couldn't just snap your fingers and fix everything. And you're right. I couldn't snap my fingers. But here's what I could have done on any one of those 16 to 60 days I spent on the streets. I could have walked into a shelter and asked for help. I could have signed up for a job training program. I could have gone to AA meetings. I could have called my brother Thomas, who I know would have helped me because he tried to help me in 1983 and 1987 and 1991 and 1999 until finally he stopped trying. But I didn't do any of that. You know why? Pride, shame, fear. I was terrified that if I actually tried to change and failed, it would prove I really was worthless. As long as I didn't try, I could tell myself I was just down on my luck, that I could turn it around any time I wanted to. It was a lie. But it was a comforting lie. Let me tell you about Marcus. I met Marcus in 1994 under the Jefferson Avenue overpass. He was 31, I was 36. Both of us had been on the streets for years. Both of us told ourselves we were temporary residents of this life. Marcus had been a teacher once, lost his job due to drinking, lost his wife, lost his apartment. Same story, different details. We became friends. Brothers, really. For 12 years, Marcus and I survived together. Shared food, shared shelter, shared stories about the lives we'd get back to someday. In winter 2006, Marcus got pneumonia. I found him shaking under his blankets one morning, burning with fever. I begged him to let me take him to the hospital. He said no, said he'd be fine, said he just needed to sleep it off. That's what we always said. We'll sleep it off. We'll deal with it tomorrow. Marcus died 3 days later. He was 43 years old. And you know what his last words to me were? He grabbed my hand and he said, "Eddie, don't be like me. Get help, please." And I held him and I promised. I swore to him that I would get my life together, that his death wouldn't be meaningless, that I would honor him by finally doing what we both should have done years ago. He died on February 11th, 2006. By February 18th, I was back under the overpass, telling myself I'd get help soon, just not today. I needed time to grieve. I needed to process. I needed to keep lying to myself. I spent 18 more years on the streets after Marcus died. 18 years. I broke my promise to a dying man because keeping it was hard and breaking it was easy. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It doesn't matter how many wake-up calls you get. It doesn't matter how many people you lose, how many chances you waste, how many promises you break, until you actually decide that today, right now, this moment is when you stop lying to yourself. Nothing changes. And the decision to change is so much harder than you think it is, because it requires you to admit that all those years, all that suffering, was your fault. Not entirely, not always, but enough. Enough that you could have done something and didn't. I have arthritis now in both knees from sleeping on concrete for 40 years. I have scars across my back from a beating I took in 2003 that I was too proud to report. I have exactly 3 teeth left in my mouth because dental care isn't really available when you're living in alleys. My lungs are damaged from years of smoking whatever I could find and sleeping in freezing temperatures. I look 85, not 67. This is what postponement costs. This is what I'll deal with it tomorrow adds up to. Not abstract consequences, not metaphorical prices. Real, physical, irreversible damage to the only body you'll ever have and the only life you'll ever live. I'm not telling you this to make you feel sorry for me. I'm telling you this because you're doing the same thing right now in your own life. Maybe not with homelessness, but with something. That relationship you keep meaning to fix. That therapy appointment you keep meaning to make. That apology you keep meaning to give. That dream you keep meaning to pursue. That addiction you keep meaning to address. That call you keep meaning to make to your mother, your father, your child, your friend. You're telling yourself you'll do it when you're ready, when the time is right, when you feel better, when circumstances improve, when you're more stable, when you have more money, when you have more time, when you're less tired, when you're less scared. You won't do it then either, because then never comes. There's always another reason to wait, always another excuse, always another tomorrow. I finally got off the streets 8 months ago. You want to know why? Not because I finally hit rock bottom. I'd been at rock bottom for 40 years. Not because someone rescued me. People had tried for decades. I got off the streets because I woke up on my 67th birthday, May 3rd, 2024, and I realized something that made me physically sick. I was going to die out there. Not someday, soon. And when I died, I would die alone, unmourned, having wasted the entire gift of existence. I walked to St. Vincent's that morning. Hadn't showered in 3 weeks, hadn't eaten in 2 days, could barely walk because of my knees. And I told them I needed help. Real help. All of it. Detox, housing, job training, therapy, everything. And for the first time in 44 years, I didn't add but afterward. I didn't say, but I'm not sure I'm ready, or, but maybe I should think about it first, or, but what if I fail? I just said, I need help, and I meant it, and that's the only reason I'm not still out there. They put me in detox for 30 days. Then transitional housing. Got me on medication for my various health issues. Connected me with a therapist who specializes in long-term homelessness. Found me a part-time job doing maintenance at a community center. It's not glamorous. I make $14 an hour. My room is 10 by 12 feet. I share a bathroom with 5 other guys, but I have a bed. I have heat. I have dignity. And you know what the cruelest part is? It was always this available. For 44 years, this help was right here, waiting for me to ask for it. I just had to be willing to admit I needed it and to accept it without conditions, without pride, without the fantasy that I could somehow do it on my own. My brother Thomas came to visit me last month. First time I'd seen him in person in 22 years. He's 71 now, walked with a cane. We sat in the common room at St. Vincent's and we didn't say much. What is there to say? I wasted half a century. He aged without me. Our parents died while I was on the streets. My mother in 1998, my father in 2007, and I didn't go to either funeral because I was too ashamed to face the family. But you know what Thomas did? He hugged me, and he cried, and he said, I thought I'd lost you forever. And we sat there, 2 old men who used to be young brothers, and we mourned all the years we could have had. That's what I want to save you from. That moment when you finally wake up and realize how much you've lost while you were telling yourself you had time. You don't have time. None of us do. Your parents are getting older. Your children are growing up. Your friends are moving on. Your body is breaking down. Your opportunities are closing. And every single day you tell yourself, I'll handle it tomorrow. You're choosing to be me. You're choosing 44 years of waste. I tried to reach out to Sarah again 2 weeks ago. Sent another letter through the social worker. Just told her I understood her decision, that I didn't expect anything from her, but that I wanted her to know I think about her every day. That I'm proud of her even though I have no right to be. That I'm sorry I chose my comfort over her childhood. She responded. Not much, just a short email. Said she appreciated the letter, said she was glad I was getting help, said maybe, someday, when she's ready, we could have that coffee. Maybe. It's the first maybe I've had in 39 years. And it's only here because I finally stopped lying to myself and did the hard thing. You're young. You're sitting there thinking, this won't happen to me. I'm not going to end up homeless. I'm not that far gone. And maybe you won't. Maybe your postponement will look different. Maybe it'll look respectable. Maybe it'll look normal. Maybe it'll look like everyone else's life, so you won't even recognize it as postponement until it's too late. Maybe you'll postpone your marriage until it's too late and your partner leaves. I watched that happen to a guy named Carlos who used to sleep 3 spots down from me under the bridge. He wasn't always homeless. He had a wife once, Jennifer, and 2 little girls. He told me about them every night for 5 years. He'd pull out this water-damaged photo he kept in a plastic bag and show me. That's Jennifer, he'd say. That's Emma, and that's Olivia. He'd been married 11 years when his drinking got bad. Jennifer begged him to get help, begged him for 3 years, set up appointments with counselors that he didn't show up for, staged interventions that he walked out of, and every time Carlos would promise he'd quit tomorrow. He'd get serious tomorrow. He'd be the husband and father they deserved tomorrow. Jennifer left in 2003, took the girls to her mother's place in Ohio, filed for divorce. Carlos told himself he'd get sober and win them back. That was his plan. Get sober, get a job, prove he'd changed, and get his family back. You know when he finally got sober? 2019, 16 years later. I was there the day he celebrated 1 year clean at the NA meeting behind the Methodist Church. He was 54 years old. His daughters were 28 and 26. They were married. They had kids of their own. Kids he'd never met. Kids who didn't know he existed. He tried to reconnect. Found them on Facebook. Sent messages. Emma blocked him immediately. Olivia responded once just to say, "I needed a father when I was 8, not now that I'm 26. Please don't contact me again." Carlos died 6 months later. Heart attack. They didn't come to the funeral. There were 7 of us there, all guys from the streets, and a pastor who didn't know him. That's what postponing your marriage looks like. Not dramatic, not sudden. Just years of, "I'll change tomorrow until tomorrow becomes never," and the people who loved you learn to live without you. Maybe you'll postpone your health until you get a diagnosis that can't be fixed. Let me tell you about Angela. I met her at the soup kitchen on 5th Street in 2011. She was 38, had been on the streets for 2 years. Smart woman. Had worked in banking before her life fell apart. She had this cough. Started out small, just a tickle. Then it got worse. Deep, wet, rattling cough that would double her over. We all told her to go to the free clinic. She'd say, "Yeah, I will. I just need to get a few things sorted first." What things? What did any of us have to sort? But she kept putting it off. 6 months later, the cough was worse. She was losing weight, getting tired all the time, still wouldn't go. Said she was afraid of what they'd tell her. Said she'd go when she felt a little stronger, when she had a little money saved, when she had somewhere stable to live, always when, always later. I finally dragged her to the emergency room in April 2012. She was coughing up blood by then, could barely walk a block without stopping to catch her breath. They admitted her immediately, ran tests, came back with the results 3 days later. Stage 4 lung cancer, spread to her lymph nodes, her liver, her bones. The doctor said if she'd come in a year earlier, when the cough first started, they might have caught it early, might have treated it, might have saved her life. Angela died 5 weeks later. She was 39 years old. I sat with her the last day. She was so small in that hospital bed, wasted away to nothing. And she grabbed my hand and she said, "Eddie, I thought I had time. I really thought I had time." Those were the last words she said before the morphine took her under for good. That's what postponing your health looks like. A cough you ignore. A lump you don't get checked. A pain you tell yourself is nothing. Annual checkups you skip because you're too busy. Medications you don't take because you feel fine without them. Until suddenly you're not fine and it's too late to be fine ever again. Maybe you'll postpone your dreams until you're too old to chase them. I know about that one personally. Before the streets, before the drinking, before everything fell apart, I wanted to be a writer. Not famous, not rich, just a writer. I had notebooks full of stories. characters I'd created, plots I'd mapped out. My high school English teacher, Mrs. Patterson, she told me I had talent, real talent. Said I should study literature in college, should take it seriously. But I was 18 and stupid, and I thought I had forever. I told myself I'd write seriously after I got some life experience, after I made some money, after I figured out what I really wanted to say. I worked at the auto shop instead. Told myself it was temporary. Told myself I was gathering material for the great American novel I'd write someday. Then I was 23 and homeless, and survival took over. For 44 years, I didn't write a single word, not one. Oh, I thought about it, especially in the early years. I'd see a sunset or overhear a conversation or watch someone and think, I should write about that. But I didn't have paper, didn't have a pen, didn't have a place to work, didn't have time, didn't have energy, always some reason. Last month, my therapist at St. Vincent's suggested I start journaling as part of my recovery. She gave me a notebook, a simple spiral notebook, the kind that costs $1. I sat down to write, and I couldn't. My hands shook, my mind went blank. I'd waited 49 years to write, and I'd forgotten how. The stories were gone. The characters were dead. The talent Mrs. Patterson saw had withered from decades of neglect. I wrote one paragraph. It took me an hour, and it was terrible, clumsy, amateurish, the kind of writing a 12-year-old produces. I'm 67 years old, and I write like a child because I postponed becoming who I was supposed to be until it was too late to become anyone at all. That's what postponing your dreams looks like. Not a dramatic failure, not a devastating rejection, just quiet erosion, just decades of someday until someday becomes never, and you realize you were always capable of it, you just never did it. Maybe you'll postpone your relationships until everyone who loved you has given up. This one might hurt the most because it's the slowest. People don't give up on you all at once. They give up in increments, in tiny surrenders, in progressive withdrawals so gradual you don't notice until they're gone completely. My brother Thomas called me 47 times in the first year I was on the streets. I know because years later, when I finally got a phone again, I looked at the records. 47 calls. He left messages. Eddie, please call me back. We're worried. Just let us know you're okay. Then, Eddie, I found a program that can help you. Just call me, please. Then, Eddie, Mom is sick. She's asking for you. Call me. Then, Eddie, Mom died. The funeral is Tuesday. Please come. Please. I didn't call back. Not once. Not because I didn't want to. Because I was ashamed. Because I didn't want him to hear the failure in my voice. Because I told myself I'd call when I had good news to share, when I could tell him I was doing better, when I could make him proud instead of disappointed. The calls got less frequent. Twice a month, once a month, every few months. Then they stopped. For 15 years, silence. Thomas gave up, not because he stopped loving me, but because you can only reach into the darkness for someone so many times before you have to pull your hand back and save yourself. When I finally called him 8 months ago, after I got into St. Vincent's, you know what he said? After I apologized, after I cried, after I begged his forgiveness, he said, I grieved you, Eddie. I buried you in my mind years ago. I had to move on. And now you're calling and you're alive, and I don't know what to do with that. We're rebuilding, slowly, carefully, like strangers learning to trust each other. But we lost decades. We lost our parents' final years. We lost holidays and birthdays and ordinary Tuesdays when we could have just been brothers. We lost all of it because I kept postponing the humility it takes to maintain relationships. That's what postponing relationships looks like. Not dramatic endings, not big fights, just gradual distance, just unreturned calls and canceled plans, and I'll reach out next week until there's no one left to reach out to. The details don't matter. The pattern does. And the pattern is simple. You think you have time. You don't. But here's what you need to understand, and this is crucial. It's not just that you don't have time. It's that postponement becomes a habit. It becomes your default response to everything uncomfortable. And every time you postpone something, it gets easier to postpone the next thing, and the next, until your entire life is one long postponement and you can't remember what you were waiting for in the first place. I didn't just postpone getting help once. I postponed it 16,060 times. Every single morning for 44 years, I woke up and made the same choice. Not today, tomorrow. And each time I made that choice, it reinforced the pattern. It strengthened the neural pathway in my brain that said, when things are hard, wait. When things are uncomfortable, delay. When things require courage, postpone. By year 5, I wasn't even consciously deciding anymore. Postponement was just what I did. It was who I was. Eddie the postponer. Eddie who'll get his life together tomorrow. Eddie who'll call his brother next week. Eddie who'll deal with his drinking when things calm down. Eddie who'll reconnect with his daughter when he has something to offer. Eddie who'll go to the doctor when he feels worse. Eddie who'll ask for help when he really needs it. Except I always really needed it. From day one, I really needed it. I just told myself I didn't because admitting I needed help meant admitting I couldn't do it alone. And admitting I couldn't do it alone meant admitting I wasn't the person I thought I was. And that was too painful, too devastating, too real. So I postponed the truth for 44 years, and the truth waited. It didn't go anywhere. It just sat there, getting heavier, gathering interest, accumulating consequences, until the weight of it nearly crushed me. I'm 67 years old. I've been alive for 472 days. I wasted 60 of them sleeping on streets because I told myself I'd fix my life tomorrow. And now I'm in a 10 by 12 room with 3 teeth, destroyed knees, no relationship with my daughter, and maybe 10 or 15 years left if I'm lucky. This is what tomorrow costs. Not in theory, not in metaphor, in actual, tangible, irreversible loss. I will never hold my grandchildren. Sarah's kids, they're 12, 9, and 6 now. I've seen photos on Facebook. Beautiful children. They have my daughter's smile. They'll grow up not knowing I exist. I traded knowing them for pride, for the comfort of not facing my failures. Was it worth it? You already know the answer. That's what postponing relationships looks like. Not dramatic endings, not big fights, just gradual distance, just unreturned calls and canceled plans, and I'll reach out next week until there's no one left to reach out to. The details don't matter. The pattern does. And the pattern is simple. You think you have time. You don't.